What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Data with Peachey episode, a very long time coming episode. Sorry for the extreme in-betweens the latest podcasting episodes. It has been a very, very busy life for my family and I. Lots of travel, all good things, of course. New role, obviously, that's going very, very well as well. But now I'm coming back to you. I'm going to read a little bit off of a script. I have a script over here to my left-hand side. If you're watching on YouTube, that's what I'm looking at on camera. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcasting application, obviously consider giving it a 5-star review, which is always helpful for the program. But today's episode, I think we've talked about it before. To be honest, I can't really remember all the things that I've talked about on this podcast. But this one is very near and dear to my heart. I always say that, but the title of this episode is Great Data, Bad Decisions, Why Quality is Not Enough as it relates to data. Now, as always is the case with Data with Peachey, this podcast, I try to keep it light. I try to keep it airy. I try to keep it less than 15 minutes because, look, my attention span is not what it used to be anymore. But I really want to try to get information out to you, especially across the LinkedIn universe, or any social media that you may be using. The episode that we're going to be talking about today is specifically why you can have the cleanest, most trusted, gold standard, high quality, you name it. You can have the most pristine data and still make terrible decisions, because some of the decisions that you may be making could be built off the back of terrible processes or just terrible data usage in general. Because we've spent years, and I know that I can say this in my career, I've spent literal years, over a decade at this point, trying to invest and preach the gospel that is data quality. And sometimes, and I will admit this too, in my career, we have totally underinvested in the concept of data usage. I know that I have talked about this at conferences from time to time. We lump data quality and data usage together a lot because what I've seen in the industry, I've seen it in my career. I've seen it with talking to other people at conferences and other careers and listening to podcasts and things like that. They all lump data usage and data quality together. And a lot of times what we hear from our business constituents is that, well, the data is wrong. Well, we dig into it and actually, maybe the data from the warehouse or the data from the source arrived as it was supposed to, but then they may do an incorrect join, or they may do some sort of filtering or something along with where they're transforming the data, they're modifying the data out from its raw source, and they're getting effectively incorrect or not exactly what they were trying to get to. So I think let's split it out and let's talk about what data quality is and then what data usage is. So data quality, again, as we all know, it's really about, is the information or the data accurate, complete, timely, arriving as expected, consistent? Does it have integrity? Is it arriving where it's supposed to be? Did it move from A to B and still maintain that integrity? That's what we're talking about with data quality. Data usage. Now, data usage is about whether the people know how to interpret that information, apply that interpretation, and then use that data. I'm going to say the right context, but what I really mean is the right context for their use case or their usage. They may still be using the data as they believe that it should be used, but in reality, they're using that data out of the wrong context, which means it's still incorrect usage of that data. Everybody knows that I love analogies. In other words, you could be drinking the most purified water, crystal clear purified water out of the wrong cup. Maybe that cup somebody was sick and they drank out of that cup before, or that cup's got a hole in it. Again, great water, high quality water, wrong usage of the cup, or using the wrong cup is really where it comes from. So again, loving the analogies. Let's talk about this and drive it home. These are some analogies that I've used before, some analogies that you can use with your other business or executive leadership teams when you're talking about data. Let's talk about the analogy. I love a grocery store. Everybody knows what a grocery store is like. Imagine buying fresh ingredients. You got this great night planned. Are you going to make the best sandwich and use organic produce and grass-fed beef and you're going to use all these crazy great spices. And then you just go, you know what? I bought all the best ingredients, highest quality you can get. Let's throw those bad boys in the microwave for 10 minutes on high. I bet I'm going to have a gourmet meal because I bought the best ingredients, the highest quality ingredients that you could get. But I'm going to go ahead and toss that in the microwave, 10 minutes on high. Great data, absolutely terrible usage. Well, quality matters. We all know that quality matters. But you go ahead and cook that like that in the microwave, awful results, terrible. Again, quality matters. But if the cook doesn't know the recipe or know how to actually cook or do the meal totally flops. Now, let's talk about the GPS, because everybody's got a GPS on their device. Everybody's got a GPS in their pocket, basically. The best GPS in the world will not help you if you type in the wrong destination. Right data. Absolute right data. However, if you typed in the wrong destination or you ignore it, still the data's correct. You just used it wrong. You used the thing wrong. So many different data initiatives I have heard, quote, we had the right data, we just didn't use it to guide the right decision. Or I didn't get the expected outcome, and we dig a little bit further was, you were using actually the incorrect data. The data was of quality. You just used the wrong data to get to where you were trying to get to from a decision perspective. Now, within the regular business world, right? Take the grocery store and all the food and the GPS out of it. Let's, kind of bring it closer to home in the business world. If you're a heavily regulated entity, kind of like, financial services, the medical or healthcare or anything like that, regulatory exposure doesn't always happen from bad data. It honestly sometimes comes from misused data where somebody goes, well, I got to have something. I'm just going to go out. This looks like the data that I need to get. I'm going to go out and grab it, put it in a report, sign off on it, throw it out the door. Yeah. So a risk team may have maybe exposure data or something like that, especially if in financial services. But if you've summarized it out of context or applied it to the wrong model, you are effectively making inaccurate reports. And that could have pretty sound ramifications from a regulatory or compliance perspective. Now, flipping that on its head and going to strategic decisions based on assumptions, not just data. Now, I do feel it's very important to have that context, that quote unquote gut feeling. If you worked in the business a really long time, you're usually going to have some data that can back up that gut feeling that you have, but you've got to make sure that it is the right context and the correct data to back that up, not just going out and randomly finding data that supports the hypothesis that you have in your head. Now, let's use another example where we talk about maybe a lending team having the correct market or customer data, but they don't have that contextual awareness of what those rising rates mean or the environment mean. They may recommend a product, even though you're using the correct data, they may recommend the wrong product at the wrong time to somebody. And that could have huge ramifications, not only on the customer, but also on the financial institution as well. Now, you know me, I do like to leave you with little tips and tricks and things that I've seen so you don't randomly throw all of those really high quality ingredients into the microwave and ruin all of your meal. First thing is educating the teams, both the data and the business team, on the why, not just the what. Everybody has data, table stakes. We've said it before, I'll say it again. Everybody has data. We have to talk about why that data is important. We have to go beyond just showing people where the data lives. So what it lives in this table? So what it lives in this schema? Or so what it lives in this warehouse? Why is that important? Why is it being there important? What is all the data behind that? Why do I need to care about the usage of that data and where that data is? Because that ultimately can connect to not only your goals, but the company's goals as well. Making sure that I'm not going to sequester just this particular data that's only specific to my business. If we effectively democratize that data, it gives the ability to have other people in the business see what the data is. Of course, we got to make sure we govern and manage it in accordance to policy and standards, procedures, not misuse of data and things like that. Absolutely makes total sense. But again, when you do that, you open up a whole slew of opportunity for your data to be used to drive the business from a strategic direction. But that requires you to take the time to govern and manage your data, definitions, lineage, proper usage, literally taking the time to say, I use this data for this. This data is used for X, Y, Z. Don't use it for anything else. That's the context of that data, where it's currently located. Again, not just pointing to it and saying it's located here. Cool, it's located there. I get it. Now give me some contextual awareness around that data so I can talk about why it's important that I know that it's there. I will say the really unpopular part out loud for tip number 2. I'm kind of over dashboards. I'll be honest, kind of over them. We need to build data translators. We need to invest in teaching, training, and educating individuals that understand about the data, just the raw data. It's here. This is what it means, and then layer in that business context. Those people that work in and around the data may not know the special context of what happens to that data in the business. So let's really invest in that role of like the data translator role, investing in different analysts or on the business side or the data side, so they have proper knowledge of not only what that data and where it's located, but why is that data important to the success of the business. And tip number 3 is lastly, literally document metadata. For the love of God, I don't know how many times I have said it on this podcast about how important metadata is. All you have to do is properly document how this data, how you use your data, how you go to that table and you use that data. Just document that and put it in some sort of central repository. If you do not have a catalog or a central repository or anything like that, put it in Excel and then just publish that out for people to read. I have a repository information. Here you go. There's that information. We've got to start getting that tribal knowledge out of people's head about how the data is used. That way we can understand like what this data means. How is it used? What key reports does it go on? What compliance person reads this particular report? Anything like that is, let's put that context down somewhere so they have that information. That is critically important. And that is something that I cannot overstate enough, that is such a big deal. All right, wrapping all of this up, at the end of the day, we know data quality is important. It's just not enough. Table stakes data quality, you gotta have good quality data. However, if your teams do not know the context or how to use that data, then even the cleanest water, the cleanest data pipelines, the golden records will not help. You've got to have good quality ingredients, and you've got to have the right recipe, the right chef, the right driver, GPS person, whatever you want to say that I said in an analogy here. It is quality plus usage, not one or the other. So that's it. That's all I have. Thanks for coming back and listening to this latest episode. If you are watching this on YouTube, consider doing all the YouTube things like share, subscribe, thumbs up, leave a comment below. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcasting application, please consider doing the 5-star review. And I will catch you again. I keep saying that I'm going to try to not be so far in between episodes, and we'll see what's going to happen. I may have to utilize AI a little bit more to come up with some scripts just to give me some time to just sit in front of the camera and talk like I did here. So be good at it, and I will catch you on the next episode.